Let's walk through 1 Chronicles chapter 21, KJV, carefully. This chapter is a powerful lesson about pride, obedience, repentance, consequences, mercy, and worship. 1 Chronicles 21, the meaning of the entire chapter. Background: David was the king of Israel. God had blessed him greatly and given him victories. Yet in this chapter, David made a serious mistake. He ordered a census of Israel. The problem was David's heart and his reason for the number. The problem was not simply counting people. The deeper issue was David's heart and his reason for wanting the number. The issue was trust. The chapter begins, "And Satan stood up against Israel and provoked David to number Israel." 1 Chronicles 21:1, KJV. Satan tempted David to take a census. David instructed Joab to number the people. Joab recognized that something was wrong with what David was asking, but David insisted. Why did David want to count the people? He was becoming focused on the size and strength of his kingdom rather than depending completely upon God. The issue was not mathematics. The issue was trust. David was tempted to measure his security by numbers instead of God. Why didn't God want this count? Counting people itself was not always sinful. The problem was connected to David's purpose and attitude. David's census represented dependence on human strength, pride in the size of the kingdom, and a failure to recognize that victory comes from God. Remember David's words when facing Goliath: "The battle is the Lord's." That principle still applied when David became king. The lesson for us: sometimes God has blessed us so much that we can begin looking at what we have instead of who gave it to us. We can count money, possessions, or followers. There is danger when we believe we don't need to depend on God. That is where pride enters. Verses 7 to 13. After the census, David realized he was wrong. Verse 7 says, "And God was displeased with this thing. Therefore he smote Israel." David immediately acknowledged, "I have sinned greatly because I have done this thing." This is one of the most important parts. David didn't make excuses. He didn't blame Joab or Satan. He said, "I have sinned." That is the beginning of genuine repentance. God sent Gad to give David 3 consequences. He could choose 3 years of famine, 3 months of defeat, or 3 days of pestilence. David said, "Let me now fall into the hand of the Lord, for very great are his mercies, but let me not fall into the hand of man." David knew God was merciful. This teaches us, God's correction does not mean God's abandonment. He did not stop loving David. Verses 14 to 17. The pestilence came upon Israel. Thousands died. David saw the angel of the Lord with a sword stretched over Jerusalem. David was deeply grieved. He said, "Lo, I have sinned, but these sheep, what have they done?" He pleaded for his father's house. A lesson about leadership. David's sin did not affect him alone. Our decisions can affect our families, churches, and communities. God instructed David to build an altar. David asked Ornan to purchase the threshing floor. Ornan offered it for free, but David refused. David said, "I will not take that which is thine for the Lord, nor offer burnt offerings without cost." True worship involves sacrifice. David built the altar and offered sacrifices. The Lord answered from heaven by fire. The angel put his sword back into its sheath. Mercy came after repentance and worship. Confession, correction, obedience, and worship led to God's mercy. A painful failure became significant. The place where David built the altar would eventually be connected with the temple Solomon would build. God brought good from failure. Questions and answers. Why was the census sinful? It reflected reliance on human strength instead of completely trusting God. It was pride. Who provoked David? 1 Chronicles 21:1 says Satan did. However, David was still responsible. Temptation does not remove personal responsibility. Why fall into the hand of the Lord? Because David trusted God's character more than the mercy of people. God is very merciful. Short summary. 1 Chronicles 21 is a story about the danger of pride and power of repentance. David confessed and trusted God. Judgment stopped. Main message: never allow what God gave you to be more important than God. Your strength is not in numbers, but in God. Run back to Him. Key lesson: pride says, Look at what I have. Faith says, look at what God has done. Repentance says, Lord, I have sinned. Mercy says, God has not given up on me. Worship says, Lord, everything I have belongs to you. Let us walk in His grace.